Hello. This webinar is organized by SNic Solutions in association with Siemens Digital Industry Software. Siemens Digital Industry Software is driving digital transformation to enable a digital enterprise where engineering, manufacturing, and design meets tomorrow. SNic Solutions is a systems and technology integrator delivering digital transformation technologies in food manufacturing. To introduce all of us here at SNic and Siemens, I'm Nikhil Joshi, founder and CEO of SNic Solutions, and your moderator for this webinar. With me, I have our Vice President of Business Development, Blake Lucan, who speaks to food manufacturers every day in understanding their challenges and needs. Blake, thank you for joining here.
Yes, thank you, Nikhil. It's good to be here.
I also have Colin Henry, Portfolio Development Executive from Siemens, who every day speaks to food manufacturers and consumer packaged goods industry at large on how they're solving modern day challenges with digital transformation. Colin, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Nikhil. My pleasure.
So Blake and Colin, we are going to have more like a conversation where I'll be asking a few questions on your recent experiences with food manufacturers on improving customer responsiveness. And to start with, Blake, can you set us a context as to why customer responsiveness is becoming so important in food manufacturing?
Yeah, I think today, jumping in here, when you look at industry leaders today, going back, it's really been about brand relevance and marketing, and what we've seen and what we're talking about today is that's kind of changing and evolving, and more that's falling onto the shoulders of manufacturing. So, to jump in, on the screen here, you see what Profit.com, a company, has identified or defined as industry leaders. And this is a title they give out every year. Everyone on this call probably recognizes these names and brands. And in fact, you probably don't need the industry subset that's above their names to know what it is, their household names, and we use their products and services every day. Profit.com has declared these companies as industry leaders based off of their brand relevance, or how well they are able to execute the measuring system, which is the 4 principles of brand relevance. I'll bring that up here. And when we talk about what that is, the first pillar is customer obsession, which is when the company has a true focus on a greater customer understanding. It involves not only the customer's wants, but everything these brands invest in, they create and bring to market are designed to meet important needs in people's lives. The second pillar is ruthless pragmatism, which is defined that when a brand has pragmatism, it takes bold steps. They're making smart bets, failing quickly, and experimenting often. These brands are making sure their products are available when and where their customers need them. And essentially, they're delivering consistent experiences, which is simply making life easier for their customers. The third pillar is pervasive innovation. And these brands are obsessed with what their competition is doing and what their customers want. They know that without innovation, their organizations won't be able to grow or thrive. These brands make emotional connections, but the most important part is they earn their customers' trust. And finally, the last pillar is distinctive inspiration. And the truth is, most businesses and brands are unfortunately not really that inspired or inspiring to their customers. But these industry leaders are the ones who are pushing. They're engaging customers in new and creative ways, and they're finding new ways to address unmet needs. And you're probably asking yourself, what does this have to do with customer responsiveness? And you're right. These principles or pillars are all applied to more of a PLM, a product lifecycle management, maybe a marketing approach, bringing new products to market, etc. But to answer your question, Nikhil, it's really, in today's world, a good branding story is only half the battle. The industry leaders of tomorrow, especially in food and beverage, need to apply these same principles to their manufacturing operations. And I think to sum it up, it falls on manufacturing to effectively cash the check that their sales and marketing teams are writing. So if we look at that, I think as product customizations and complexities grow, these principles will rely more and more on manufacturing than marketing. And if we look at these principles, how can we apply those to the shop floor? So with customer obsession, we're talking you able to meet the demand and the needs of your customers? This is a key aspect of responsiveness. And quite frankly, this isn't a new concept. This is something most companies have understood for a while and have focused on for a while. When we look at being pragmatic, we're talking about when changes on the shop floor happen, do you know the impact? And are you able to make calculated decisions that are based on reality and not theory? But not only that, but what are the costs of those decisions you're making? And with innovation, it's, can I move my manufacturing systems to be more flexible? Can I achieve that balance of being while also being operationally efficient? Essentially, it's, can I be customer obsessed and pragmatic at the same time? When we're talking about being innovative, we mean breaking down those silos between your departments. And lastly, we have inspiration. Can I move to a newer business model? But also, when the company has an innovative idea, do I have those foundations built to act upon that idea? So we're going to ask you, to the listeners out there today, just to take a chance to write down these 4 pillars and next to them put a score of 1 to 5 where you think you are on that scale in each of these categories. And then as we go through at the end, we'll ask you again to see where things change, because this is really a good way to measure of what your customer responsiveness is, at least from your eyes, and then where you need to focus on going forward. All companies today are at different stages on these principles, and today's session is all about how you can master them on the manufacturing floor with the right tools, allowing your employees to make impactful decisions instead of constant firefighting. So to put it a different way, you can't keep ducking at curveballs. You need to learn to play the curveball. So Nikhil, let's take a deeper look at what we mean by customer obsession.
Interesting. So what you're telling is that customer responsiveness and improving it is very important if you have to come across as a brand that your customers remember. In the interest of the larger organization, I'm presuming that food manufacturers who joined this webinar are at obviously different stages in terms of the principles that you showed. So can you give us an understanding of what's the situation today like? Like, how are food manufacturers taking obsession and being obsessed today? Because it's not like food manufacturers are not manufacturing. They are doing whatever needs to be done. Could you give us a current state of obsession?
Yeah, so one thing as we go throughout this webinar, what we want to do is kind of give an example of what we're talking about. So we're going to kind of follow a company here where our processes will be on the left here, and we're serving our customer on the right, who is called OTD, or on-time delivery. So you can guess what this customer cares about and what's important to them. But the goal is that we want them to be happy and ultimately remain our customer. So historically, company here on the left has operated in a way where we've got some planned inventory, we've got some planned capacity, we're making some SKUs that are make to stock, and then finally we've got some planned overtime. And this is all to ensure that we're still meeting these customer needs, but the fact is that there's a cost to it. With planned inventory, we've got essentially cash just sitting on a shelf. With capacity, it can always fluctuate. We've seen that a lot lately. And if you have machines running idle, machines can be running idle due to a number of reasons. If we have seasonal items, whatever that reason is, but that's going to be driving your cost up as well, obviously. When we talk about products being made to stock, that's another storage issue, and even shelf life is another concern there. And then finally, we've got some planned overtime. So at the end of the day, we're still producing what the customer wants and when they want it. And most companies today have been focused on customer obsession, but cost to it. So that's where we need to take a different approach to it. And what we're hearing from our customers is that this isn't really the whole story. There's more to it, and there's more complexities that we're seeing. And this is nothing new to anybody that's joined this webinar here. All of these complexities you're already managing in your everyday operations. All of these domains that are showing up on the screen are interacting with each other, and they're almost as gears as part of a larger machine. And when one of these gears gets affected, they all do. They are all impacted by one another. And what our customers are saying is there's these outside forces that are really changing things, that even though we've got that planned inventory, that planned capacity, there's still outside forces that we can't really plan around. What happens when your customer wants a rush order? What happens when they want to change their order quantities last minute? Or even supplier delays. And I think over the past year, one thing we've seen or heard from a lot of our customers is that there's been a lot of issues with supplier delays, and it's something where everyone in the industry is getting affected by. It's not necessarily a certain supplier had some poor management and you can go look at others. Everyone's being effective, and to use a bad pun here, all the suppliers in this sense are in the same boat. And we've seen that with the Ever Given ship in the Suez Canal. There was the Montreal port labor strike that affected a lot of Eastern Canadian companies. And now more than ever, there will always be these outside forces you can't really plan around. And again, when this happens, all these gears are affected. So, Colin, I kind of wanted to pass it over to you here. If you could explain, going back to our customer examples, of what you're seeing customers do to respond to these additional complexities.
Sure. If we start with this slide here, our customers everybody plans to limit the amount of inventory that they have. Well, this is what we see in the industry right now. They're trying to right size their capacity. They're trying to control their unplanned downtimes, trying to limit their make to stock and limit their overtime. Go on to the next part of the slide. What we see, keep going. One more, there we go. What we see happening today is companies are attempting to do this adjustment, to address all this complexity. The complexity is occurring in every one of these companies. They're using older scheduling systems, older manufacturing systems. They're not designed to handle the realities of today's market and today's manufacturing. So while they're trying to plan to limit their inventory and they're trying to plan for right size and capacity, what really ends up happening is they end up with excess, inventory, trying to address, customer demands. They end up with expired inventory. They've got capacity that they don't really need, or they've got capacity in the wrong areas. And all of this leads to larger unplanned downtime. So while the plan is to limit the inventory, limit your excess capacity, what in reality is what's happening is we're ending up with more capacity, more downtimes, and we have more inventory. That's what customers are seeing today.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah. So what I understand is that clearly with what Colin and Blake, you guys are saying, is that the modern day challenges have changed, where clearly customer obsession itself is not enough, and which probably brings us to the next principle, and that is ruthless pragmatism. And if I look at food manufacturers today, it's not that companies aren't working or they're not taking any steps, to be a little more pragmatic, to keep operational expenses low. So this is where I'd like to ask Blake, you, and then after that, Colin, that how is this principle in the boardrooms, as well as among C-level executives or on the shop floor, and what are some of the challenges that we are seeing when somebody is taking a pragmatic approach?
Yeah, exactly, Nikhil. And I think when we look at this, there really are distinct goals between the areas. And when you mentioned the boardroom, right, if sales has a little bit more pull in your organization, their questions are going to be the ones that are prioritized, especially when we look at the questions on the screen here. So let's take a scenario where, let's say we're in a weekly sales and operations planning meeting, and sales is understandably concerned about their customers and keeping them happy. After all, it's the first pillar, and most companies really understand the importance of that. But then manufacturing and operations, on the other hand, is complaining about their predictions from sales. They're wondering why we don't have enough stock, and ultimately wants there to be a plan or schedule adherence in place. And then finance at the same time is wondering why manufacturing is requesting more inventory, etc. And this familiar conversation happens all the time. And the fact is, there needs to be a balance between these distinct goals. So like you said, Nikhil, there's it's not like companies aren't looking at this pragmatically, but the point is that there needs to be a balance between all three. It's not just very siloed like we've mentioned before. And at the end of the day, all these conversations they're having are around customer responsiveness. Sales is worried about on-time delivery, manufacturing cares about productivity, and finance is concerned about cost and stock. So again, if you think of these as levers, when you're pulling one, you're kind of pushing the other. So it is a balance, and without pragmatically thinking, you're not really solving the problem at hand. So Colin, I'll let you answer Nikhil's second part of the question is, how can you tell us how companies are using this pragmatic approach today?
Sure. The pragmatic success is bringing in accurate forecasts, leveling out your inventories, not over purchasing, having scalable capacity as demand changes, and sequencing your operations. By taking this approach, you're able to keep your costs in line with what you expect. And you just saw the dollar signs go down a little bit. And we've got a customer right now who's on this exact journey, and they've taken a very pragmatic approach to scheduling and demand. And they were able to increase their productivity by 12% and achieve 100% on-time delivery to all of their customers by just taking a very pragmatic approach to the demand and to their schedules.
So Colin, what I understand is this is more like, because of the modern day complexities, I have costs going over the top, and pragmatism is just, allowing me to get back my profitability and even survive. But I'm sure that, to be a brand, you have to start innovating. And I think this is where, it leads us to our next principle, where innovation is more about, how do we, have significant improvements and not really marginal improvements. So, maybe I'd like to know, Blake, from you in terms of what you're hearing from food manufacturers, talk when it comes to innovation. And Colin, if you could then tell us what some of our customers are doing today in food manufacturing to bring innovation and customer responsiveness.
Yeah, and I think you again hit the nail right on the head when we are seeing customers working to digitalize their processes within these different domains. But what we don't see a lot of is them having these systems talk to one another in a truly integrated way. Talking about breaking down silos, that's been around for several years now, but it still today remains more important than ever. A few slides ago, when I showed those gears all working together, when one gear is affected, they all do. So as we're talking about customer responsiveness, are you truly able to respond to your customers in a timely and efficient manner when your systems aren't connected? And when this is the case, you rely on humans, you're relying on manual work, and that encourages errors and mistakes. After all, we're all human. So in order to effectively innovate, you have to have your systems talking to each other. And having that data and information flow is a key to responding in a pragmatic way while remaining customer obsessed. So Colin, again, as Nikhil said, can you show us what customers are doing today that are applying this innovative approach? And then how can we bring that to our examples that we've been following?
Sure. The way to think about this is speed comes through collaboration. Innovation and communication across your entire organization allow for sharing of information in a timely fashion, allows for using this information when it can make a positive impact on your operations. Having a unified repository of information, of critical information, allows companies to take advantage of new innovations. This collaboration significantly reduces the data entry and non-value added work and allows you to optimize your staff. We have a customer who has significantly improved production with better collaboration as they were able to adjust their current capacity to meet the customer demands. They're changing customer demands. And what this has done is lower the costs across the entire organization.
Awesome. That's a very interesting insight, Colin. What you're essentially saying is that within a manufacturing company, if people could collaborate and gain more consensus in decision making, you're essentially going to have that speed. And then even if demand is fluctuating or there are uncertainties in the external environment, you sort of can, have flexible operations to better respond to those changes. That's great. I hear when I saw that the profit.com showing the brands, I think somewhere those brands are, having a very distinctive inspiration, and it's more like what you have said so far is either being cost effective or being operationally profitable, or having more of a competitive advantage, or gaining basically some advantage. But I think inspiration sort of goes a little more than that, and this is where I'd like you guys, Blake, what are you seeing, food manufacturers tell you in terms of how they want to look at their business, inspiring, whether it is their employees or their customers. And Colin, if you could then touch upon, what some of our food customers are doing today already.
Yeah, I think going back to the beginning when we asked you to kind of put a score next to each pillar there, if you want to improve your score on the inspiration pillar and want to transform your brand, you really do want to look at your business model. And in the Profit.com brand definition, distinctive inspiration was defined as pushing the status quo, engaging with customers in new and creative ways to address unmet needs. And that is truly what you need to do to become and really or remain an industry leader. And food manufacturers are seeing disruption come in, and ultimately they're needing to change models. If you have these collaborative foundations in place, then you're going to have the confidence in your system and your people to attempt a disruptive change. And I think leading up till now, these last pillars all kind of go together, but those are the foundations that you need to have in order to be distinctively inspired. And without those, you really can't do it. And I just want to go over a couple examples of what that is. And the first one is Amazon, right? We talk about them a lot when we're talking about inspiration and innovation, just from what they've done in terms of e-commerce. But that's not really what I'm focusing on today. It's more of the Prime subscriptions, right? They know that I'm a subscriber to their services, so they're going to get more of my business, and that helps them with forecasting and sales. On top of that, they've got options where if I'm buying multiple things from their store at once, I have the option to ship them in fewer boxes together, which is easier and cheaper for Amazon. It's more convenient for me, the consumer, because I don't want a bunch of boxes showing up. And from that, I'm even getting a discount or money back to Amazon for me to buy more from them. So it's a great business model for them. The other aspect of that is with COVID, and leading up to COVID, Amazon was actually losing a lot of their e-commerce market share to other websites like Walmart.com and that sort of thing. But what they were able to do when COVID came was prioritize essential items. So if I wanted disinfectant, I could get that the next day. If I wanted some new headphones or something, I was going to have to wait a month. So with that, and with their earnings they just came out with, they were actually able to get a lot of that market share back because they had the foundation in place to pivot in a time when COVID was starting, and it really paid off for them. And again, that's something where you can't do that once it's happening. You need to be prepared and plan for that ahead of time. If we look at Tesla, they were pre-ordering cars before their production even started. Those different bullet points that Colin pointed out on the slide, it's knowing those accurate forecasts, knowing your demand, allows you to plan and be more efficient. And the last example here is Frito-Lay. They've started doing product synergies. They have Doritos Cool Ranch flavored Lays. And this isn't necessarily a new business model, but it is a new way to promote two brands. But to do this, they need manufacturing to deliver consistent quality experience for both of these brands. And this is just yet another changeover in their process, furthering their complexities. So I think it's a good example and a fit here that you need to have these foundations built in place. And Colin, I think it's clear from this that food and beverage manufacturers are going to play an ever-increasing role in the success and the relevancy of their brands. So can you tell us how customers are leveraging these principles today and going forward?
Sure can, Blake. Achieving a fully integrated operations, need to go back a slide, I think you skipped one, and fully automated systems from wall to wall is absolutely transformational. Oh, that's fine. You go to the next one. Is absolutely transformational. You have these changes can improve customer satisfaction, reduce downtimes, at the same time increase your manufacturing flexibility. Companies can truly become agile, learning how to manage all of this complexity. And the fact of the matter is, this complexity is continuing to increase. We have a specific customer who has increased their production by over 20% while improving their quality by integrating all their systems from wall to wall. The same customer who is now sharing data across the entire organization, they're able to respond to customer demands in real time. Previously, it took them up to 7 days or more to respond to customer demands. This ability, this is now this new inspiration. Now that they have new opportunities that they can go after to fuel growth because of their ability to respond to customer demands. So what we're talking about here is taking all of this complexity, using it, living with it, but turning it into a competitive advantage.
Great, thank you, Colin. I think that really sums it up nicely, right? Customers are seeing the benefit of this already, but again, to highlight it, you need to have those foundations in place. So to conclude, the industry leaders of tomorrow will be the truth holders to the brand. And with the media and all those other outlets, a good marketing strategy is not enough to remain relevant. Consumers can give their honest feedback, which will be seen by the masses. And as you pointed out, Colin, consumers are demanding consistent quality experiences. So it'll be the ability to apply these 4 principles and then effectively respond to your customers, especially as those customers and those channels are evolving. So no matter where you are on your digital transformation, you are on that journey. And it's important to understand at what point of inflection you're at. And the point is that all these principles affect one another. So you can be pragmatic without being customer obsessed. And even in some industries where that's a little bit more flexible, that might work. But in food and beverage, you need that to be balanced. And from there, you can build on the innovation, which builds the foundation for the company to make those inspired changes. So again, after we've gone through this, I hope everyone listening can go back and rescore themselves on where they think their companies are at with each one of these pillars, because knowing where you stand at each pillar will help you know where to go tomorrow. So that's what we have today. I want to thank everyone for their time, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Blake and Colin. It's definitely wonderful insight, and I think if any food manufacturer looking to improve customer responsiveness looks at these 4 principles that you mentioned, I think is a good measure for them to understand where they're at today and how they could improve. Yeah, we'd like to take some questions as we go. So in the chat box, if you have any questions, feel free to basically put in there. I'm just going to give everybody a second here in order to gather the questions. I think I have one question, and this is for Colin. So Colin, from what our attendees have heard today, what are the kind of skills necessary? Like, you talk about digital transformation that will improve customer responsiveness. Seems like, if technology has to aid in this kind of problem solving, the question is that, what skills are needed in the food manufacturing business, in food manufacturing itself, to make this happen?
Sure, Keel. Things you gotta look at. Number one, your C-level executives, the people running your company, need to understand the value of the data that they're looking at. These are data-driven organizations. So no longer these are Excel spreadsheets or paper copies. They need to be able to look at the data online and understand the data that they're looking at. Of course, that translates right into the automation layer. Somewhere out in the shop floor or part of operational IT or your IT department, you need somebody who understands factory automation, the automation layer, capturing data from the machinery itself, putting that data into a data store so that you can run those reports. So you need someone who understands automation. And lastly, your operators need to develop a new understanding of why they put the data into these certain systems or what that data is being used for. So as they do their job, as they make product, they can understand what the metrics are and how their lines are being monitored.
Thank you, Colin. I don't have any other questions from the attendees, but I have one last question, maybe for you, Blake, in the interest of the title, Customer Responsiveness. When you talk to food manufacturers today about some of the challenges that they talk to you, they obviously have been given by their management some of the metrics or measurements that they are seeing affecting customer responsiveness, and obviously because of the measurement is where I think the question is, like, how do you measure if your customer responsiveness is improving? So what are food manufacturers, what metrics are they talking to you about that they want to improve?
Yeah, so when it comes to improving your responsiveness, I think there's kind of 2 ways to look at that, sort of an internal and an external viewpoint. So when you're looking at your company, there's those standard metrics like on-time delivery, there's schedule attainment, and those are really the two biggest ones because you, like we said before, you can be 100% on time but have a terrible schedule attainment. And the purpose of keeping your costs low and being competitive is that balance of both. So those two measurements are a big way to improve how you are effectively responding to customers. But externally, it's also how you're recognized as a brand, how your customers view you. When your customers need a rush order, do they trust you to deliver, or are they going elsewhere? And then are your customers increasing their order sizes? Are they partnering on new product developments? Are they having prearranged contracts? At the end of the day, it really comes down to profitability. And as we said before, brands are built from sales, marketing, R&D, et cetera. But with the way things are going, it's more going to be on manufacturing to essentially cash that check that they're writing, and follow through on that. So I think that's only going to be happening more and more. And the companies that can effectively respond will be the ones that are getting those new contracts and those bigger orders and working with their customers to create new products and that sort of thing.
Awesome. Very insightful. Well, this is all the time we had. So Blake and Colin, again, thank you both very much for your time. And on behalf of SNic Solutions and Siemens Digital Industry Software, we thank everyone attending this webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.